and the cancer had spread to multiple organs in my body, which included my lungs majorly, multiple lesions around the lungs, my esophagus, my thoracic system, my lymph nodes, and my veins.
They said that the lifespan was 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
Now, at any point of life, when someone is told that, it might be a huge shock, or you might not know how to comprehend that piece of information.
It was said that I would probably not even make it to the 3 months. So it was pretty bleak at that point of time. And like you said, the various thoughts that went on in the mind was denial.
The way that people ate, many, many years ago, it was so much more clean. And you chose to find out more about it and maybe go back to the traditional ways of living.
So the principles of my diet were I have to do intermittent fasting because I'm not going to be fed every time I feel hungry. So 16:8 was what I started doing. I started taking all cruciferous vegetables because they were high in pH, right? And they had cancer killing compounds. And I started either steaming them or pressure cooking them.
Did you ever feel like giving up in that time?
I remember my wife one day came and she hugged me real tight and said, Pravin, you're acting as if you're already dead. It's not over till it's over.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Brew and Banter. I truly believe that some stories need to be told and some journeys really need to be spoken about. And today, on today's podcast, we have one such guest whose journey is so inspiring that I'm truly grateful that he could be on my podcast. Today, we have Pravin Khatal, who is the Global Salesforce and Adobe Managed Services practice leader at IBM. The one lesson that I would want everyone to take at the end of this is to never give up. And I'll tell you all why I'm saying this. Is because he was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic cancer a few years ago. And despite that, he chose to not quit and not give up. And today we have him on the podcast sharing his journey on how he was able to overcome it, deal with it, and beat cancer. Hello and welcome to Brew and Banter. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Rashi, for having me. I'm so happy to be here with Brew and Banter and looking forward to sharing my story with everyone.
Yeah.
Hoping to inspire.
Yes. You know, some months ago when I was making the guest list, obviously somewhere it was in my mind to have you on. But actually, there was, I never thought that it could happen so soon since you stay in the US and I'm here in India. It was almost as though when that time would happen, I thought, okay, fine, maybe a few months after I start the podcast, that you happen to come here. But then it so happened that, so early on, you could be on the podcast. I really feel that this entire situation was kind of meant to be that you could come and share your story.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's all God's grace. And looks like this was meant to happen, like you said, and it was just facilitated so smoothly that it happened within no time. I remember we spoke about this a few weeks back,
Yeah.
and here we are.
Yes, right. So, I want you to start this podcast by taking us through that moment when you found out that you were diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic cancer. Because for me to even process, what that must have felt like, it is unimaginable.
Right.
So, when was that time and when did you find out and how did you find out that you were diagnosed, with cancer?
So essentially, there are two parts to this. The first part is when my initial diagnosis happened. This was in the year 2019. Uh, it was around March time frame. I was shaving and I noticed this lump on my shoulder and chest area, and somewhere between my shoulder and chest on the right side. And the moment I saw that, typically concerned like just everybody else, hey, what is this new thing? I spoke to my wife. We decided we'll show it to the doctor. Uh, Went to the doctor, showed it, and he said that these kind of lumps do come up from time to time. Uh, we'll get it examined.
Okay.
And that's when we actually did the ultrasound, we did the biopsy and the PET scan. and that's when we realized it's metastatic.
Okay.
That was stage 2 back then in 2019. It took me by surprise, because till then I was living the typical life of a technology person, who's in the US.
Yeah.
You kind of you have your work days, and then you have your weekends, which you look forward to spend time with your friends
Correct.
and family, have some little parties which involve alcohol and smoking and so on. So I was looking forward, that was the typical lifestyle I was living, and here was one fine day, I suddenly realized that I've been told, you are positive for cancer stage 2. That was the first time, and it took me by complete surprise, because initially it was very hard for me to even fathom why me. You know. Now the second part is really, after I was diagnosed, we went through a period where I underwent surgery the first time, and then I was on certain medication.
Okay.
Exactly 1 year down the line, that is 2020 May timeframe, we noticed another, a kind of a lump around the same surgical area. Went back to the doctor. This was COVID times. So we were doing everything online, meeting the doctor also online. He indicated that I should come down and get it tested. And we realized there was a recurrence. So it had slightly, again, um, it had become stage 3, because it started spreading around the original area. Again, we underwent another surgery, and this time, as a precaution, I underwent the radiation therapy.
Okay.
Uh, Around August time frame is when I finished my radiation, and then we waited for some time. Again, cut to the next year, which was 2021 February. This was the time everyone in the family was stuck with COVID.
Okay.
And that was the time when even I was COVID positive, tested COVID positive. So typical breathlessness, fever, those were the symptoms. So I assume that that's what it is. Everybody's symptoms kind of went away. But in my case, the fever went away, but the cough and cold persisted.
Okay.
So I thought maybe my immunity is compromised because of my history with cancer. Probably it will take a few more weeks. So I kept on, going on with those symptoms. Additional 2 weeks down the line, I realized that things were getting worse. I was not even able to walk a couple of steps. I was completely breathless. I then slowly started getting bedridden. Breathing was very laborious. I was breathing in gasps. So we went to the doctor. This was in February 2021, and uh, the doctor said you got to get admitted to the emergency room, which is an equivalent of an ICU here.
Okay.
And the moment I was admitted, they drained out practically a gallon of fluid from my right lung. My right lung had collapsed, and when they drained that fluid out, they sent it for cytology, which is the study of the fluid. And they realized that it had cancerous elements in it, and the cancer had spread to multiple organs in my body, which included my lungs majorly, multiple lesions around the lungs, my esophagus, my thoracic system, my lymph nodes, and my bones. So it had become a stage 4. I was completely bedridden, uh, gas, struggling to even breathe. That was the situation in 2021. And so that those were the two parts. One was the initial diagnosis, and the second one was really the escalation of the disease to stage 4. And after I got discharged, we went to the doctor back, and he told us that, Pravin, this is not curable anymore. It's going to be only, we'll do the best we can, standard of care, uh, which was essentially, just certain medications, oral medications. And he said there was nothing more we could do. On some insistence to the doctor, he did admit that, Pravin, this is the rate of progression of cancer is so high, it is a very severe case. To be honest with you, you should be going back to palliative care. The total lifespan that you're looking at is probably 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
And that came as a huge shock.
They said that the lifespan was 3 to 6 months. Yeah. Now, at any point of life, when someone is told that, it might be a huge shock, or you might not know how to comprehend that piece of information. Obviously, eventually, you were able to overcome it, which we will talk about. But in that moment, what did you feel? What was, the mindset and that mental, thing for you? What was going on in your mind at that time?
The first time I heard that, there was obviously denial, saying that, how can someone tell me how much I'm going to live? So that was one reaction. The second reaction was, the doctors are the most trusted people in such situations. So you obviously have that feeling that he knows what he's talking about. So 3 to 6 months is really what it is. But how can I say that? Can I validate this? So after the 3 to 6 months prognosis, we actually took second, third, fourth opinions,
Okay.
and all of them were kind of saying the same thing, that it's pretty much around 3 months. In fact, one of my very close friends of my brother-in-law told him candidly, and I got to know this much later when I was out of the situation, that it was said that I would probably not even make it to the 3 months.
Oh.
So it was pretty bleak at that point of time. And like you said, the various thoughts that went on in the mind was denial. Second one was, I don't trust this person, the doctor. But then when I got all doctors saying the same thing, then the third thing was, obviously I started questioning what was the meaning of this whole thing. What was my life really all about? Since childhood till that point, I had made so many plans. uh I'm so and so, I am such a professional, I'm a father to my kids, I'm the only son. There are all these roles that we play in our day-to-day lives, and suddenly all those roles mean nothing one fine day. That's exactly what I felt, that, oh, it amounted to nothing, is it? I was very confused, and I would say all the identities of these roles, or the egos, they all shattered in one single moment. It was a very difficult and gloomy time. Very gloomy. I wasn't sure what I was going to do.
You have achieved so much in your career. You've worked in some of the biggest companies. Today, you're working at IBM. Now, when you accomplish so much, you must be proud of yourself, proud of what you're doing. You're living in the US, all of that. And as you said, everything came to a halt.
Yes.
At the end, when something happens to your health and you're told all of these things, that you just have 3 months to live, that just simply stops mattering, right?
Yes, absolutely. Nothing mattered at that point of time.
Mm.
Uh, I had formed so much image, such images about myself, that I'm going to do this, I want to work for this, I want to do this kind of work, I want to build a successful teams, I want to have successful customers, I want to increase the scale of what I was doing. And suddenly it came to a solid halt. And in fact, not just an halt, it didn't matter anymore. Because after 3 months, probably it wouldn't exist, because I wouldn't exist. That was the feeling. So it was very gloomy, as I said.
But what stage of your career were you in before you were diagnosed?
I was in a state in my career where I was doing very well.
Okay.
But I will be very honest with you. I was actually taking a lot of work related stress. I wanted to do more. I wanted to achieve more. So I was working real hard. I was putting in 18 hours, 16-hour days every day. And then obviously that time I was around 45 years of age. So you kind of, your metabolism and immunity is also changing. Physically, you are changing. So far it was, I was in the early 40s. So obviously you're still worried about how you look, how you present yourself. And then when this thing happens, when your career is also going the right way, your kids are growing, so you like you're on the top of the world. So that was the situation. Personally, professionally, everything was going right. It's just that I was stressing myself from a standpoint of professional stress, personal stress, because I was actually doing a lot of heavy workouts because I wanted to look good physically in the gym a lot of time. And then I was also taking a lot of personal stress,
Okay.
in the sense that I had these goals for myself, financial goals and all. So unknowing to my, and very honestly, you don't realize it at such times. I see a lot of people in their 40s going through similar lifestyles where they're living such stressful lives without them realizing that they are living those lives. I was going through exactly the same thing. And little did I realize that my body's immunity and metabolism, what it was in the 20s or 30s, hasn't stayed the same. So that stress was actually telling in the form of a chronic disease. And, you kind of, I got hit by all of that suddenly.
So, stress is something that you spoke about right now, and in general, it is something that most of us, especially in today's day and age state, there's so much competition all around us.
Absolutely.
And, definitely at your age, but even at our age, at 20, 21, we are all so stressed all the time. We want to accomplish this and that because it's never enough. It's just not enough. But maybe we don't realize that this stress can be way more harmful for us than
Yeah.
we even realize.
Absolutely, Rashi. And not just physical or mental stress. Look at the things that we use, products that we use. We are also surrounded by carcinogens. The water that we drink, it's got chlorides and fluorides in it. The shampoos, the toothpaste, everything, the milk that we have, it has the packaging, the processing, processed foods.
Yeah.
Everybody's so busy with pursuing their goals that many times we're not really looking at what we're putting in ourselves. The air is polluted around us. We don't get enough sunlight. We're all living in air conditioned apartments or offices. So our real exposure to the five elements is limited, and our exposure to the carcinogens has hit the roof. Over and above that, we're taking a lot of physical stress, and we're also taking a lot of emotional and mental stress. So three stresses actually: physical, emotional and mental, and the third one being chemical stress.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm. So you spoke about the five elements. Can you dwell a little bit into that? How important are those? But we are probably not able to access them, unfortunately, in today's day and age.
I believe that human beings are very condition oriented. So they condition themselves into habits and patterns.
Okay.
Uh, those habits are physical habits as well as emotional thought patterns. So these days, what is happening is everybody is conditioned into living in a competitive world. So everybody is in a survival mode continuously. And what is happening is when they are in that continuous survival mode, they want to do better than what they did earlier or somebody else that they are competing with. you know so each one has these benchmark competitors, right, in their mind. And to compete and do better, we sometimes don't realize that our entire mind and body are made up of the five elements. The five elements being earth, sun, air, water, and ether, right? Space. So if you just look at space, they say that the entire physical body can be, if we remove the space aspect from our body, we could actually fit into a small pea-sized rice.
Mm. Okay.
If you look at water, 70% of our body is water. Uh, dust to dust, ashes to ashes. When we cremated in certain religions, we're actually going back to dust or earth, right? There's a lot air. Air is something that we breathe, and it's part of our five elemental composition. So, we are made up of these five elements. We are no different than a tree, which we all of us agree that the tree has got an intelligence. So do we. But a tree doesn't discriminate. It doesn't compete, right? It gives the same amount of shade to everyone without discrimination. It gives the same amount of oxygen it can to the best of its ability. It's we humans, we believe that because we have thing, this thing called mind and brain, we are somewhere superior and our job is not, and we are isolated from this five elemental nature. We are not. If you look at it, there are so many living organisms on this planet. There are so many planets in the entire solar system. There are so many solar systems. The entire cosmos is the total knowledge that we've got about our own existence, and the furthest we have reached is to the moon or maybe to Mars, right? Physically.
Yeah.
But the arrogance with which we conduct ourselves, the human race, is that we know everything. We are the best. Somewhere we've forgotten that we are made up of the same five elements that is prevalent on this earth, that every living organism is made up of. And unless and until we don't go back to our roots, we are not going to elementally balance ourselves. That elemental balance is very important for our well-being.
Yeah, correct. So, this arrogance, this competition can be the very reason why so many of us today are maybe successful, but a lot of us are going through so many health issues. Mentally, not everyone is doing all right. So, that can be a huge, huge cause for all of this.
Absolutely. Like emotional and mental stress, it's said that every breath you take, you your mind cognizes or creates around 12 to 16 thoughts. In every minute, we breathe around 16 to 20 breaths. If you do the math, it's about 200,000 or 250,000 thoughts in a day. Can you imagine how many of those thoughts really are important? 90% of them are useless.
Yeah.
So, how much energy are we spending on something that is illusory in nature, that is not real in nature? Most of the thoughts you'll notice are either about the past, which you can't change,
Yeah.
or about the future that is not existent.
Hmm.
Yes, yet,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
So we we kind of toggling between the past and the future, and we just get working ourselves up, and then we are physically trying to match those expectations of the future by putting in physical stress. So the mental stress is giving rise to physical stress, the stress is giving rise to the mental stress, and then we are also surrounded by the carcinogenic stress that we have, the chemical stress. Now in this situation, sooner or later our physical well-being is going to break, and that is what is being manifested in the form of chronic diseases in today's world. You see so many people have been diagnosed with cancer. Alzheimer's is very common, dementia is very common in elders or senior citizens. Heart diseases, diabetes is rampant. Kids you know have diabetes these days. So the reason for this is our lifestyle.
How do you think stress causes cancer, though? How can stress, without us knowing, be such a huge factor that can cause cancer?
I was reading this book on a topic called epigenetics.
Okay.
What I realized is every human being has got billions, if not trillions, of unique genes in the body. So each gene produces a protein when the gene is expressed. So the gene essentially holds the blueprint or the of the protein that it can express. So technically, if you have millions and billions of unique genes, you should be able to express millions and billions of proteins, right? But the human body just about expresses close to anywhere between 25 to 30,000
Okay.
proteins. That's the amount of proteins that we create. So that means there's a out of the possibility of millions or billions, we're only expressing a few thousand. Why do we do only that? Is because we are creatures of habit, of conditioning. If you think about it, we get up from the same side of the bed every day. We pick up the toothbrush with the same hand, put the same amount of toothpaste in it. We start brushing from the same side. We have the same amount of strokes of the toothbrush on either side. Suddenly, we feel fresh after that. We gargle the same amount of times. We go and take a bath. We start with the same body part that we always do. We are just programmed. We think we are independent, but we are not. We are slaves of our conditioning. That is why the conditioning boxes us into certain form of expressions, genetic expressions. And unless we don't uncondition ourselves or change the way, this conditioning, because of this situation that we are in, which is survival and competition, it's the same stressors, same proteins, same hormones. Proteins are finally hormones, peptides, T cells, enzymes. They're all proteins that our body manufactures, right? So the same hormones are getting created. Over creation of the same hormones are going to create imbalances, hormonal imbalances. You will see most of cancer cases are related to hormonal imbalances,
Okay.
and that's what is happening. So at some point, and modern science unfortunately hasn't yet adopted the epigenetic aspect of for cancer. It has in very fleeting, areas, but it's not in mainstream cancer treatments yet.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why the traditional cancer treatments aren't giving the kind of results that one would expect. In my case, I realized that my habits were toxic, my thinking patterns were toxic, and I was surrounded by carcinogens, and I started changing each one of them. I decided that I'm going to make a list of all the toxic habits, which was I used to drink quite a bit. I was a smoker, so I stopped all those. Uh, I used to eat a lot of processed food. I stopped those. I was not spending enough time on kind of getting that mental balance, emotional balance. Started doing more of breathing exercises, pranayams. I started doing a lot of meditations, which kind of calmed me down. So the emotional mental stress started going down. My physical stress, because of all the wrong lifestyle, started going down. Flipped from using toothpaste to the original. I remember there's a phase when I did that, and I was having most of the food I was consuming was completely organic. Things that came from Mother Nature, from Mother Nature's pharmacy. All that helped a lot because the moment you start reducing the stress,
Yeah.
your body is auto healing. It just starts doing what is right for itself,
Mm.
right? And then the healing starts.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So all of these things, you did all of these things, right? But on a personal front, we spoke about stress also.
Yeah.
But on a personal front, professionally or personally, what do you think were the most stressful things in your life? Or maybe they were not stressful, but you were taking undue stress for those aspects. What were they on a personal front?
My growth was very important for me, professional growth.
Hmm.
So I wanted to keep growing professionally. The financial goals that I had set myself were very important for me. So I had to keep growing financially. I had made some investments over the period of time. So obviously my expectations around the investment, not that none of them were, it was not that they weren't growing, they were growing, but I was expecting more. So it was more about my expectations, and my expectations were becoming unreal at, at times. I wanted more and more and as fast as possible, right? And then I also wanted to work very hard for it. So I was physically stressing myself out 18 hours, 16 hours a day, weekdays. Weekends was also a lot of stress because of alcohol. I'm partying very hard. And the parties, actually, when you party hard, the next days are like hungover days, so you kind of going through an emotional sinusoidal wave when you're having a couple of drinks, you're feeling on the top of the world, and then you suddenly the next day you're feeling right in the
Low.
lows, so you kind of hitting highs and lows every week, every day because of the alcohol. So lot of things, all clubbed together.
Mm. Alcohol is something that the popularity is really booming.
Oh, yeah.
It's growing a lot. And when you have been consuming alcohol for 20, maybe 10, 20 years, or
Yeah, almost 20 years. Yeah.
and then you probably suddenly have to stop, cut off smoking, drinking, all of that. And that might have been difficult for you, right? Was it hard?
Actually, it was not, because y- the the position I was in was survival.
Mm.
So and the moment I realized that I was lucky to realize it faster, that my body is self healing and I'm just putting toxins in my body. The moment I figured that out, I just stopped, and I immediately started seeing the positive results of it. So, in a way, I realized that what I was doing was not good for me, and I immediately switched out of it. Now, once I saw the positive results, then I wanted to do more because I wanted to survive.
Yeah.
I, I've been told that only 3 months remaining, so I wanted to do more and more. So I just thought and I decided I'm not going to ever smoke again. I'm never going to drink again. Smoking, I actually left even before the diagnosis, but it was not too much before. It was about a month before I got diagnosed. But it was just a feeling, internal instinctive feeling that I have to stop doing this. It's not good for me anymore. And then I got diagnosed, so the question of smoking again never arose. And then the same thing with the alcohol, when I realized that it had become stage 4, there's no question of, because my body was physically not in a condition to even process. I had very low energy. It's practically bedridden. Having alcohol was a far shot for me. And then when I started recovering, because I had changed my lifestyle, then it didn't matter so much, that I needed to have it. So I still meet my friends, they do have drinks. I'm the designated driver now.
But when everyone else is, drinking around you, your friends are drinking, everybody's drinking, do you ever feel like having a drink yourself?
No, not anymore. I just realized that it's not important for me to have it anymore. And for various reasons. One is, uh, I, after during the recovery period, I also got exposed to a lot of yoga, which I started doing. I got exposed to a lot of spiritual aspects of our existence. I'm a major follower of Advait Vedanta.
Okay.
uh, I had already started having a clean eating lifestyle. So, uh, and which is part of the Ashtanga Yoga. Essentially, there are 8 phases, which is yam, niyam, asan, pranayam, pratyahar, dhyan, dharana, samadhi. So, I was inadvertently, without my knowledge, was doing a lot of that. I had already cleansed my eating habits. I had started doing asanas, pranayams were happening. Pratyahara is, to start going away from materialistic things. Any which ways, I was trying so focused on the survival, of getting out of cancer, that I was not consuming a lot of materialistic things. I was not even thinking about materialistically. So Pratyahara was happening. I was doing a lot of meditations, dhyan. So Ashtang Yoga was actually happening through me without me no realizing that it was happening.
Yeah.
And I saw the results of them, so amazing, that it's like alcohol. We condition ourselves into liking alcohol. I had conditioned myself into liking this good lifestyle.
Yeah. But, I was watching a YouTube video that you had posted about this journey as well.
Yeah.
And in that, I saw that you had said that when your neighbor found out that you've been diagnosed with cancer, he just happened to come and give you a book that said, it's something about how you can heal via the natural methods. And they had a few ways listed. How did that book change your life? Was it like a guiding force?
It's an amazing book, and it so happened. And I now when I look back in hindsight, I feel that there's this super intelligence all around us and within us as well. Uh, we call some people call it super consciousness in modern science. Harvard and Stanford are doing research on consciousness studies around the world. In our Advait Vedanta, we call it Brahman, which is the same thing as super consciousness. So you cannot sense it through your five senses, but it's there. Now, what? So there is an intelligence which is existing, and then there is the human intelligence. And the human intelligence and that intelligence is divided by the different identities that we have created of ourselves, our understanding of who we are. So imagine them to be filters.
Okay.
Now, when these filters shatter, so in my case, it happened when I was told the 3 month prognosis, and suddenly I realized that none of these identities matter, right? So they shattered in a single moment. Imagine when that happens, the conversation that you are having now, or the connect that you are having, is directly between your intelligence and that super intelligence. And at that is the perfect situation for grace to walk in. And grace meaning whatever you need at that point of time, I think that just happens, which we say by God's grace and
Yeah.
things that happen. So at that point of time, I was just looking for something that would be a savior for me. And the next day, I had this friend come over and say, Pravin bhai, I heard about you. I don't know how to help you, but there's this book which was on my in my bookshelf, which probably may be of use to you. And I had nothing else to do. So I took the book and I started reading it. The book's name is The Only Answer to Cancer by Dr. Leonard Coldwell. A life-saving book, I would say, a must-read for every cancer patient. And there are close to 380 natural techniques in that.
Okay.
Now, think about it from my standpoint. Here, I was told that everything's gloomy day. There's nothing that can happen. 3 months, you just have to wait, go back, palliative care. And I see this book now, which has got these 380 techniques. So for me, it was a treasure, you know. And I suddenly started experimenting with that. More than what aspects are mentioned in the book. When I started experimenting, I didn't experiment everything in the book. I'll be honest with you. But I started realizing my five elemental existence, which we just spoke
Yeah,
about.
correct.
I realized if I'm part of nature and made up of those five elements, then I have to do everything to complement the balance, elemental balance of my body. And that can only happen not by synthetic chemicals or not by, surgeries or anything. It can only happen through natural ways, through natural five elemental ways. So I said, okay, and during our research, I had a great friend. I have an amazing friend, in fact, who called me from India, and he said, Pravin bhai, heard about you. Let's research cancer together. But we had some ground rules. We're not going to do YouTube research. We are not going to do internet research,
Okay.
or rather, Google search research.
Okay.
He said, no Insta research.
Okay.
uh, our ground rules were very clear. We are going to read books on cancer. We are going to look at alternate uh, cancer treatments. And we are also going to look at research papers in National Health, Institute of Health, NIH, or PubMed sites. So we started reading a lot of that. And every day we used to have a Zoom call where we used to share ideas. And we realized certain patterns which cancer follows. One of them was cancer likes to survive in bodies which are craving for more and more sugar. So high carb foods, which typically is in processed food. So because now on one side the book is giving me an idea that be more elemental, And on the other side, my research is also telling me processed food is bad for you. So that means both are saying the same thing. So then I start curating a list of foods that I can have which are natural. As I read, I realize that the body pH also decreases, that is, becomes more acidic when you have cancer. And the research also tends to suggest that, again, not confirmed, but it says that it has been noted with insufficient evidence that certain cruciferous vegetables,
Okay.
they can actually they have a positive impact on killing
Mm.
cancer cells.
Okay.
And those cruciferous vegetables, when I started looking at the pH of those cruciferous vegetables, they are all alkaline. So you were taught in school acid plus alkali is neutral.
Yeah.
So if my body is becoming more acidic as a cancer patient, and if I give it more alkaline food, it's actually neutralizing it.
Correct. Yes.
So then that means my first hypothesis that anything which is five elemental food
Mm.
is going to help me seem to be working. So I started then, focusing on that food. Then another thing we came across was cancer cells can survive in low oxygen.
Okay.
So it's also called, cancer is also called fermentation of cells. So then we said, okay, then why don't I oxygenate my body? So people were talking about hyperbaric chambers and oxygen cylinders. I said, why do I have to do all that? Why don't I just do pranayama? You know, where I oxygenate by, it's all about breath, right? And I started doing 45 minutes, 1 hour pranayams, Anulom Vilom and Kapalbhati, and but mostly Anulom Vilom, Omkar and Brahmari. And then we are also researching. I read some books on yoga, B.K. Iyengar's Light on Yoga, Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, Banda's mantras, mudras, books on those. And eventually I realized there's a science behind it. A lot of people are teaching yoga on Instagram these days, but nobody's really talking about the science behind it.
Yeah.
And the science is related to your spine. It's related to, how blockages of hormones can be unblocked and the positive effect it can have. So all these, when I started putting together, I realized it's working. So that book actually, that's where it got me started.
Started. Yeah.
That's why it is so special.
Mm.
I thank. I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to reach out to Dr. Leonard Coldwell, who's written the book,
Oh.
and he did respond back to me. I told him that your book is miraculous, and it kind of got me on this journey to recovery, and it did help me recover.
Yeah.
And he was so happy.
You said a few very interesting things that you did, which of course we will talk about. But one thing that I felt, in the beginning of when you started answering, is that you getting this book, I think you somewhere feel that it was meant to be, that it was a sign, because on a very mundane, normal day, he happened to give you this book that gave you a hope and, got you started onto something. So do you believe all of this is meant to be? And if somewhere it's in our destiny, we just keep getting those signs.
Absolutely. It's a brilliant question. And this is so true. Now, in hindsight, when I think about it, before I got, let us rewind back to the point when I was so consumed with my own work and with everything.
Mm.
All the identities which we are all playing in our day to day life, somebody's brother, somebody's, father, somebody, a professional at work, and we want to do the best in every role. So when you are in the office, you are the professional, so playing the role of a professional. So that identity you want to do the best with. When you are at home, you are a father, so you want to be the best father, you know. So we put ourselves under so much pressure, and the identities become so important. Like I mentioned, the super consciousness and your consciousness are not able to have connection because all these identities are acting as filters. The super consciousness does give us signs all the way. It's just that we are so much into our identities that we don't see those signs. The moment these identities shatter or we start, getting less and less attached to them through various practices like yoga or, kriya yoga or pranayams or meditations, you start creating a gap between your attachment between yourself and these identities. Then you start seeing those signs. And it's so important that, I mean, I now when I look back at that incident, I'm not even in touch with the friend who gave me the book anymore. We kind of lost touch a few years, a year or so back. But I'm so eternally grateful to him, you know, that he gave me the book. So in some way, it was meant for him to give me the book, and it just landed in my lap, and I started, reading the book, and it opened up new doors, new possibilities, and the conditioning which I was talking about, I was able to break out of my old conditioning into these new areas. And I would rather say I was forced, because of my physical condition. I was forced into exploring those new areas. And the moment I started exploring, going with the flow, I realized that, there is a possibility of recovery, because things started changing for the better and better. And I also realized that I have to keep looking for these signs now.
Hmm.
I cannot be so consumed with my roles, because those roles didn't matter. If I'm going to die tomorrow, in 3 months, how am I going to be a professional? So the professional role didn't matter. I wasn't thinking about it
It
anymore.
just stopped mattering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those roles kind of, stopped mattering. And then I could read those signs, or I could deceive those signs maybe more easily.
But, we spoke about signs, and you might get signs, but you also have to grab those opportunities, right? And you said that after the book, you started researching. And while that might have given you courage, through this time, you're also going through something so serious. So, did you ever feel like giving up in that time? Did you ever feel like,
Oh yeah, it was the case, because see, what happens is, when you hear something from a person you trust, like we trust our doctors, right? And when they tell you there are the chance, 3 to 6 months, and obviously the expert says that you don't have a chance. And in many, this happens throughout everybody's life, not specifically with this in a similar situation, but it's like a student may be looking at a teacher, and the teacher says, you won't pass this time. You can imagine what that would do to a student, right? Because for him, the teacher who's actually teaching him the subject, or whom he has pinned all hopes on of learning things about that subject, is saying you won't pass. So it does set the students' expectations that way. It's like an additional set of barriers or hurdles, that mental hurdles that are placed in between you and recovery. So though that happened with me, uh, and I had pretty much thought that I'm I'm done. You won't believe, I took my wife with me to the bank. We got her added to all the bank accounts, so that because I was worried what would happen to them after I was gone. So I was planning for my death. So and it was an objective decision based on the data that was available at that point of time, which was the prognosis of the doctor and my own physical condition. So we went to the lawyers, we started drafting up a will, those kind of things. And I used to cry every day coming back, thinking that it's all over. I remember my wife one day came and she hugged me real tight and said, Pravin, you're acting as if you're already dead. It's not over till it's over. And it hit me so strong. I said, yes. Why am I conditioning myself and acting as if it's all? And that's when the next day was when I got this book. So, that is where the signs, they happen when you are open to them. Had I been completely consumed, I would have got the book, I would kept it on the side and probably not even looked at it. It would be a different story. I wouldn't be sitting here. But I think somewhere, the signs are there for us. It's just that we have to have that outlook. I think my outlook changed because of that hug that I got from my wife. You know, so it meant a lot. It meant a lot when I think back about it.
hmm? Your wife said something so crucial at a very crucial moment in your life.
Yeah.
And this was almost like a life altering moment, right? But, this giving up of sorts that happens to us on almost a day to day basis.
Right.
Sometimes, if we don't pass an exam that we really want to pass, all our hopes are pinned on for that one exam. If we think that we do not pass, especially I would say in today's generation, with so much competition, we think, okay, if I don't get this job, if I don't pass this exam, if I don't get so and so, then that's it. What will I do afterwards? So, do you have something to say to, everyone watching that might be going through such things on a, maybe, of course, a much smaller scale than what you went through, but feel like giving up on all of this?
Sure. Uh, I'll I'll tell you about this in a spiritual way.
Hmm.
Okay. So I was reading this book, and it's an amazing book. You should read it sometime. Uh, it's called "Who Am I" by Raman Maharshi.
Okay.
It's actually only a 17-page book.
Mm.
If you can get the sense of what he's trying to say in those 17 pages, trust me, I would say you are like, you've landed mentally, emotionally. So the book really talks about who are you really.
Mm.
So, and in Advait Vedanta, we also talk about it. Who are you? Who am I? Niti niti, neti netis mean not this, not this. So what I mean by that is, when we were born as children, we were pure happiness. We were not even given an identity. We were just given a name, which was an identity. So you would have seen a lot of these small kids, Rashi, are you hungry? And Rashi would say, Rashi is not hungry. So the kid hasn't yet adopted the name of Rashi, right? From there started the whole journey of the various roles. First is you adopted an identity, which was the name, and then the various roles. So you started going to school, then you realize, oh, I'm the student. Then, your mom and dad started showering a lot of love to you. Then you started realizing, I am a child, I'm their child. Then your grandparents did the same, and you realize, I'm a grandchild. So grandchild was a role, child, is a role, student is a role. So we started adopting these roles. Each role is demanding only two things: pleasure and avoidance of suffering. So now what is happening is, in every role that we play, we started conditioning. First of all, we adopted these identities. Each identity started demanding pleasure. As a child, you wanted an ice cream. So you made a fuss for an ice cream. The parents gave you an ice cream. So now you got pleasure out of it. The second was, you wanted an ice cream, but they didn't give you an ice cream. You got suffering out of that. मेरे को नहीं दिया ice cream. No, I was not given that ice cream. So we are always toggling between seeking pleasure and avoiding suffering for each of the roles that we are attached to. What my learning was, in my case, I told you, all those roles shattered, because my question was, why me, and who am I really? The moment we start detaching ourselves from these roles is when you start get actually realizing the happiness, the living life truly.
Mm.
We may say we are really free, but we are not. We are actually slaves of this conditioning, of attaching to those roles and seeking the pleasure and the pain, avoiding the pain. And we doing this for every role. The moment I step out of my office, I'm no longer a professional. I step into my car, I'm a driver. Now every time now I'm driving, I want to be the best driver there. Somebody comes in, cuts across, I'll suffer as a driver. So now I have to show him I'm a better driver. So there you see road rage happening. So every role we are just seeking these two things. But if we stop taking these roles too seriously, attaching ourselves to these roles seriously, then the demand for the pleasure and the avoidance of suffering will loosen a bit. And that's the real freedom, the happy. That's why you feel happy. for a few moments when you do yoga, because that attachment has got slightly loosened. But then again, you go back to the same situation and again you meet the same attachment again. So, I would say that keeping conditioning yourself into that detached state of mind is really what we should work towards as far as possible. You you will see that we get more happiness, true happiness, bliss, out of that. So that's why that book, Who Am I, Who Are You Really, Are You Any of Those Identities, is that's why I highly recommend the book.
Yeah. You chose to go back to the traditional ways of living. You know, maybe 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, when we did not have all of this around us, we did not have foods with so many chemicals. There probably wasn't this much stress. The way that people ate, many, many years ago, it was so much more clean. And you chose to find out more about it and maybe go back to the traditional ways of living and go fully clean on your diet and your ways of living. How did that impact and change your life, and how were you able to manage doing that?
So first thing, very nice question, very important one also. I remember the day I switched my diet to a clean diet. It was very knee jerk reaction. So I'd come back from the hospital. I said, okay, the doctor has told me clearly nothing, go back and 3 months and palliative care. So, but what can I do? So the first, we have to be very honest with what we know and what we don't know. So my honesty about what I knew was that my body is self-healing. It has got a tremendous self-healing capability. Coming from an engineering background, I understand one thing, that if you give the right inputs, you will get the right
Output,
outputs.
yeah.
So body is auto healing. I have to give it the right inputs. So what are the right inputs? Food is a major portion of it. So then what is the right input? So then you have to go back to the original design. So when the human body was probably designed first time, what was it designed for? What input was it designed for? And then you really realize that what I'm having is not what my body is really designed to consume. We've adopted, we've evolved also. But evolution takes hundreds and thousands of years. But if I look at my food, what I had 25 years back as a child or as a middle-aged person, the difference between them was huge. 40 saal mein, 40 in 40 years, uh, your body is not evolving in 40 years. It'll take 4,000 years, right? So, but the food had changed so much. So that's when I realized that I have to go back to eating what it was designed for. So now I was reading a book that time called Sapiens, and the book actually talks about hunter gatherers. So we were hunter gatherers, and I realized that if I'm staying in a cave, like I started imagining, I'm living in a cave. I'm a caveman. There's no microwave. There's no refrigerator. I cannot store food because perishable. If you don't have a microwave and a refrigerator, but there's no point of storing food. It will just rot in no time. So then every time I'm feeling hungry, I have to first go out and eat, hunt for food. If I hunt or gather food, so first I'll look for fruits. I don't, because they are tasty, right? And if I don't get them, then obviously I'm going to look for green leafy, vegetables and stuff. Just look at, eatable. I'll develop a taste for them eventually. If I still don't find that, then I'm going to kill a small bird or fish, a small fish. And the only way to cook it was in fire and uh, uh, water.
Yeah.
So that is exactly the principles which I started adopting. And second is, there will be times when I won't get any of this food. So the principles of my diet were, I have to do intermittent fasting because I'm not going to be fed every time I feel hungry.
Okay.
So 16/8 was what I started doing. I started taking all cruciferous vegetables because they were high in pH, right?
Yeah.
And they had cancer killing compounds. And I started either steaming them or pressure cooking them. दो तीन सीटी, in the pressure cooker, and that's about it. And if I had to eat, non-vegetarian food, it was a small fish or a bird, which is a chicken, and as organic as possible. Uh, and used to cook it in ghee, because I realized that ghee is omega 3s, which are highly anti-inflammatory. All our cooking oils are omega 6s, which are extremely inflammatory. And some of them are omega 9s, which are still inflammatory, but not as the omega 6s.
Okay.
So that meant the only cooking oils that I could use was coconut oil and ghee. So, but I didn't want to take a chance, because when you're now in such a do or die situation, you say that I want to keep it as clean as possible. So I used to have steamed and pressure cooked veggies along with some non-vegetarian food for proteins. But apart from that, I was not having cooked food at all, and I did this for almost 2.5 years. I the things that happened to me physically was I lost 30 pounds first.
Oh.
Yeah, I've gained some of it back again now, but I lost 30 pounds.
Okay.
Uh, I was feeling much more energetic, because what happens is the most energy extensive functions of your body are digestion and your cognition, which is thoughts. Digestion is getting simplified by the food that I'm eating, and I'm not eating that often because of the intermittent fasting. Because every time you have a meal, 4 hours are required for it to be digested. So if I'm having only two meals, 8 hours apart, my last meal will take 4 hours. So 12 hours of digestion and 12 hours on non-digestion, resting. So it saved a lot of energy, digestive energy. I'm doing a lot of pranayams. Every time I do pranayam, I'm focused only on my breathing. And my mind starts quietening down. Then I start doing meditations, quietening down. I'm doing yoga, which is actually flexing my spine, where my cerebrospinal fluid is now flowing without obstruction. So my overall physiology was changing back into a state of homeostasis. And those were some of the changes I could immediately sense. That I could sense I was all bedridden, and suddenly, slowly, I'm starting to feel more energy. Then I'm going back to my doctor and saying, "Can I go walking?" And she says, "Okay, but take somebody along with you so that you don't, in case you feel weak and if you shouldn't fall off." So I used to take my wife for walks, and suddenly I realized after a few weeks, I can do like 8 kilometers of walking. So can I start jogging? Asked the doctor. Doctor said, "Yeah, but do it slowly." First day itself, I jogged for 2 kilometers at a stretch.
Okay.
Gave me a lot of confidence. I said, I'm going to do more. Then I started, so I kept on. Then I realized these were the good habits that I got to keep conditioning myself into. So just like we condition ourselves into bad habits, now I had started conditioning myself into good habits and weeding out all the bad ones. So it also and goes back to your previous question. Didn't you ever feel like having alcohol? No, because now alcohol was going to put me back. I'll have energy loss. Here I would, because my body has to metabolize all that. And here instead I'm giving it food that is good for me. It's building energy in me. So the energy equation was working.
Yeah. So the amount of food that we eat today, the kind of food that we eat, the processed food, or in general, the way that we are eating is absolutely not good, right?
Absolutely not good. And the problem is we've become a materialistic society. So there are a lot of professions around this. I mean, I wish all professions well, but I feel uh, there are professions which talk about eating smaller meals many times a day and all that. Our body is not designed for that. Think about it. I mean, you don't have to read a book. You just have to go back and think about how cavemen lived. The answer is there. We didn't get food when we wanted. We used to go hungry for days. Now, when you look at some of our culture, our nani or our dadi saying, doing the vrat, that's how these vrats came about. There's so much of intelligence in some of these rituals.
Hmm.
Uh, I a lot of uh, food has also become an enjoyment thing. Whereas if you go back to the original olden school of thought, food was never a means of enjoyment. It was supposed to be had because the body needs food for energy. Now, enjoyment at the cost of nutrition. So the balance has to be maintained. If you're having really nutritious food, and by the way, nutritious food is also enjoyable. Not that it isn't. It's just that you have to condition yourself uh, into liking it. It's like the first time somebody tried a, 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 a sip of whiskey, they would hate it,
Yeah, of course.
right?
Yeah.
But then why do people drink it? Because they've conditioned themselves to like the taste. So the hypothesis here is, why don't you condition yourself into liking the good things in life,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Finally, it's all going to boil down to conditioning. So let's condition ourselves into good things. But then a lot of businesses would run out of business.
Right. Now, since you said there were certain food that you would have certain food items that were very good for you.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that as well. But what are certain food items or things that we possibly have that are very bad for you that can lead to serious health related issues like cancer?
Yes. Highly processed foods, uh, high uh, foods that have been cooked in oils, stale foods,
Hmm.
uh, foods which are being, uh, like for example, milk these days. I would look at it suspiciously.
Okay.
So let me give an example. Why?
Hmm.
In the olden days, the cows used to only give certain amount of milk, and they used to feed on grass. Now, because it has become an industry, so and every industry, every business's main objective is profit, right? So nobody is doing it for philanthropy, right? They are doing it for profit. So obviously they need to get the cows. And because I am from the technology industry, which deals with data, so typically you get cows. Now you got, let's say, 10 cows. You need them to be having food that is least expensive.
Okay.
So you don't have the luxury of grass around you. So what you do is you start feeding them stuff that will make them fat, because the more fatter they get, the more milk they'll probably, because their mammary glands will increase, and the more milk they'll give you. So you start feeding them stuff that is not what they are designed for. And then what happens is, because you want to limit the space in which they are bred,
Hmm.
right? So when you start limiting them and keeping them in close proximities, one falls sick, everyone else will fall sick. So you start pumping them with antibiotics, so that these antibiotics are going to find its way into the milk. Then you're also, uh, in some cases, I hear that they also give them hormonal injections so that they lactate more. So now imagine that hormonal injections are also, the content is going to find its way into the milk. Then this milk, which is full of antibiotics, which is from a cow which is having a lot of carbohydrated stuff, and which has got a lot of hormone altering drugs. This milk is now put into Tetra packs with preservatives in it, so that it stays for a longer period of time. You remember when you were kids, my mom used to say, "Hey, Praveen, go and get the milk, otherwise it'll get spoiled." These days, milk doesn't get spoiled for months. It's Tetra packed, right? It comes in containers. I would say avoid that kind of food.
Okay.
Another thing I would highly recommend people from having is bottled water full of microplastics, right? Uh, Another thing I would highly recommend people not to have is My grandfather, he lived till the age of 101,
Oh.
and he didn't have a single ailment. One of the things he used to do, he used to have all the fried stuff he wanted. So I used to ask him, how come you are having all this fried stuff and you don't get? He said, if you have the fried stuff as soon as it is cooked,
Okay.
it's not that bad. So, and this I'm talking about people who are not going through cancer or any chronic disease. Okay. Ideally, you should avoid fried food. But if at all you have it as soon as it is cooked. You know, don't wait it for it to cool down and then reheat it, and that's what really creates the carcinogens, right? Start learning to read labels more, nutrition fact labels, very carefully. If you have to have processed food, that's okay. Sometimes your job demands it, but at least have the ones that have least amount of carbs in that. So start reading labels carefully. What happens is we're just looking at calories and we're looking at fats, but what we're not looking at is carbohydrates, the amount of fiber in it, you know. So those are very important. The added sugars. So foods with high added sugars, avoid those kind of things.
So now, if most things that we consume somehow or the other have chemicals,
Yeah.
uh, how can we, not just people that have cancer, have had cancer, or any other health related issues in general, how can we switch to a good lifestyle, switch to eating healthier if most things have chemicals? What can we do?
Right. So one of the things is, see, in today's world, we can't avoid certain things. So fair enough, but we can limit. It's our body at the end of the day. What I put in my body is my choice, my discretion. So one is start forming habits which are better for your body. For example, don't have both your meals outside.
Mm.
Make it a point that I'll have my dinner with my family so that you get home cooked food, right? And the chances of you having it, consuming it with the right emotion, positive emotion, is also higher because the whole family is sitting there. There's chit chat, banter happening. So obviously, it'll elevate everybody's mood. You'll eat it with a good feeling. And then the second thing is, people take a lot of tiffins, right, with them. That used to be the norm, but it was home cooked food. But you wouldn't have too much of fried stuff in that. People used to take vegetables or fruits, sorted vegetables, those kind of salads. If you I still remember, uh, when I was working in back in the day, like in 97 in India, we used to have a common cafeteria where we used to all go with our tiffins. And most of our tiffins had these salads, like cucumber, carrots, tomatoes. We don't eat them anymore. They're a part of every meal, every event meals, but nobody really eats them. We need to eat more of those. Start your food with that. So those are the small things that changes you can make. Try to eat as much as home cooked food. Uh, Avoid processed food. I'm not saying eliminate it, reduce it. For people who don't have an ailment, you know, chew your food properly. Very important, because what is happening is your saliva is actually alkaline in nature. So every time you have your food, you're actually mixing the food with saliva, and then it goes into your stomach, which is the lowest pH. So it's acidic in nature. When the uh, alkaline saliva mixed food goes into your stomach, it neutralizes the acidity also. And then the digestion process actually not only happens in the stomach, but it also happens in the intestines, right? So chewing food is very important. Second thing is, always eat at the same time. It's like a preheated oven, the stomach. So let's say the first day you give it a breakfast at 10 o'clock. So next day, it's like an animal. It's if you have a dog at home, you'll give him a biscuit every day morning. He'll expect a biscuit at the same time. So now the stomach is the dog and it is expecting that 10 o'clock, I'm going to get some breakfast. Now, because we are busy, we decide, no, no, not 10. I'll have it later.
Right.
But the stomach has already released those gastric acids and it's waiting like a preheated oven. It's like when you cook pizza, you first preheat to 400, and then once it's preheated, then you put the bread inside, the pizza bread inside, right? And then it cooks. So here it has already preheated everything, set it for digestion at 10 o'clock, but you chose not to give it
No.
food.
Yeah.
So that acid is now going to start working on the stomach linings. That's what causes acidity, right? So give it food at the preset times, have timely food. So don't change timings very often.
Okay.
Mm,
Um,
Very important.
okay. So this was when it comes to the diet. Now, beyond your diet, I'm sure exercising and maybe certain other elements might also have helped you fight cancer and in general help people better their lifestyle. So, what was something else beyond your diet that you did that helped you overcome
Yeah.
cancer?
So one of the things I realized was, and this was, I was reading this book because I had nothing else to do. I was reading a lot of books those days. I told you, me and my friend were reading books and
Researching.
then researching.
Yeah.
So I came across this book on yoga, and I realized what happens in our body is through the spine, cerebrospinal fluid flows right from our perineal area all the way to our brain. In fact, the brain is floating in cerebrospinal fluid.
Okay.
For a normal person, the flow of cerebrospinal fluid has to happen twice a day from the perineum to the brain back, to the brain and back. So that's the normal flow.
Okay.
But because along the spine, there are 7 junction boxes, I will say. These junction boxes are basically, nerves. When they come together, they form something called as a ganglion. It's like, imagine it to be a bunch of wiring that is, so nerve, let's assume each nerve as a wire. So a bunch of wires is called a ganglion. And a bunch of ganglions is called a plexus.
Okay.
So now, if you had so many wires into a transformer, let's say, then the transformer would have a lot of energy in it, right?
Hmm.
So there are 7 energy junction boxes, so to say.
Okay.
We call them the 7 plexuses. So these 7 plexuses, they are along the spine. So because the flow of the cerebrospinal fluid has to happen in a normal fashion twice a day, if these plexuses, and these plexuses are also creating hormones and supplying. So every time I feel fear, my adrenal gland, which is a plexus in itself, is secreting adrenaline and cortisol. But in today's world, we are constantly in survival mode. So we are constantly creating adrenaline and cortisol. So it creates a blockage there because now it's over manufacturing. Same thing with estrogen, which is from your sexual glands, your gastrointestinal glands. Same thing, we're eating so much of food. So you start forming blockages. Now, when you actually do yoga, what you're doing is you're flexing the spine. And the way you're flexing it is every time you breathe in, you're actually flexing it backwards. Every time you breathe out, you're actually contracting. So
Okay.
you're flexing it inwards.
Hmm.
And every time you do that, the breath is facilitating the flow of the cerebrospinal fluid. So these blockages start getting, unblocked. Now there are further techniques like bandhas, which is locking mechanism. Those are more advanced in nature, but they are also part of yoga where you can actually unblock these blockages. So, and unfortunately, yoga is not looked upon as a very stylish thing to do, cool thing to do. But let me tell you, there's a science behind it, and it is the most coolest thing one can do. So, I started doing a lot of yoga. That really helped, I think, from a blockage standpoint, how I managed emotional stress,
Okay.
right? Because the and even physical stress. So those two really help. I started with one Surya Namaskar. Surya Namaskar is a culmination of 12 poses, 12, 13 poses. You do them in a particular sequence, each alternating between an expansion and a contraction. Every breath also alternates between an inhale and an exhale. So it helps you unblock. I did started doing a lot of pranayams. So I was oxygenating my whole body. Pranayams, by the way, also scientifically and ancient science, if you put it side by side, the energy that flows through our body, there is the current anatomical science is not able to understand how energy flows.
Okay.
But our ancient sciences, they had that understanding. They had these energy channel flows, Ida, Pingala, Sushumna, So when you do a pranayam, you are actually balancing the energy channels in your body.
Okay.
And when they start balancing, then obviously your energies in the body start flowing in a better way.
Yeah.
There is a scripture called the Pancha Kosha Vivek.
Okay.
We are made up of our entire physicality and emotions are made up of the five sheets. Annamaya Kosh, which is the gross body. And then you have Vijnanamaya Kosh, Pranamaya Kosh, and Manomaya Kosh, which is your subtle body, the three. And then the Anandamaya Kosh, which is the blissful body. So the subtle body and the gross body is what actually create, and the Anandamaya, the blissful body creates your entire body. Unfortunately, because we are not everyone is following this science, they're only looking at the gross body and they feel the subtle body is just the mind.
Okay.
But the pranic body is being often overlooked. And that's where pranayams actually help, balance the pranic body and, generate the flow of energy. So that helped me a lot because I was doing a lot of pranayams. The food was helping, the pranayams was helping, the yoga was helping, the meditations were helping because the attachments were to the identities we spoke about, that was getting reduced. I'd started running. So I was running more and more, practically 5 to 6 kilometers every day. And every time you run, you have a lot of endorphins release. These are highly anti-inflammatory. The food also, I was having more of omega 3s and antioxidants. So free radical creation in the body was reducing. No, so all this was helping actually. I think when you, it's like something starts rotting when there is an ecosystem for rot to survive. Now, let's say their ecosystem is not allowing anything to rot.
Hmm.
From all sides, you starting to manipulate your body to such a where your inputs are the right inputs. The processes are such your digestive process, your emotional process. You started optimizing it. The output can only be good, right?
Correct.
And that's what was happening. And now that I've seen this for myself, I want the world to know this,
Hmm.
right?
So, switching from a lifestyle wherein you were drinking and smoking and partying and taking so much stress about personal life and professional life to completely changing that environment and going to yoga, eating clean, quitting drinking, smoking was a game changer for you and helped
Yeah,
beat cancer, right?
absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that is the same thing that maybe somebody else also going through all of these things, they can also probably.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Rashi, one thing I really feel, all this needs to be made known. Nobody's talking about all these things. In bits and pieces, people are talking about it. You'll see Instagram reels, there's some truth in it, but then there's nothing to back it up with. I'm saying spend the time on the research and you will know for it's there. All this information is there. You know, go back to those sources, original sources, and they are there in our scriptures. Go back to the scriptures, start, yoga has been around for so many years. Start going back to your yoga. And I've seen people doing yoga with amazing bodies. So it's not that yoga is uncool and you can't build a good body with you can,
Yeah.
right? So let's go back to those roots, eating clean, it's helping us. So I think making every and you're doing this fantastic thing. Believe Brew and Banter is going to be one of the pioneers in letting people know about these small things that they need to incorporate and the science behind it as well,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, of course. Now through this, we obviously spoke about, how we were diagnosed and then a lot of the things that you did. But the people around you might have been a huge influence
Absolutely.
in your recovery, because if you did not have people who supported you, you would have probably been a lot more low and weak. As you said, that one hug from your wife changed things for you.
Right.
So how did having the right people around you in this journey help you?
It, beautiful question again. Uh, it's so important to have the right people around you. People are energy.
Mm,
I have a particular energy of my own.
mm,
You have a particular energy of mine. And that energy is not constant. It keeps
yeah.
changing.
Mm,
If I'm having negative thoughts, so it's like negative energy.
mm,
If I'm having positive thoughts, positive energy. So one thing is to realize that I want to surround myself with people who are thinking positive, who have an overall positive outlook to life. Not to say that one cannot be negative. There will be situations which will make you think negative. We still live in a, we are coded in a way where survival will crop up from time to time.
mm,
But overriding excess negativity because of negative conditioning is what you must weed out.
mm,
One is I am faced with a situation where my survival is at stake.
mm.
I obviously need to have that adrenaline rush or that cortisol to.
Correct.
I have to think from a survival standpoint and act from a survival standpoint. But I can't be in survival all the time.
Mm,
I have to go back to my normal state of homeostasis,
mm,
which is really, being in a positive state, in a restful state, mentally, physically, right? So I realized that surrounding myself with people who were positive, who had my well being and their well being as a priority, those were the people I started mingling with, Uh, and I think once you, that energy is very, uh, you know, uh, very addictive, so contagious. So if you are negative, you will attract negative people around you.
mm.
If you are positive, you will attract positive people. So it changes automatically,
Yeah.
You don't have to make an effort really. I want to weed out this person from my, no. You will notice that they will not have anything of interest if their energies are completely different from yours.
Yeah.
Right.
So you think once energies just stop matching, you see, first of all, I feel like negative people, they keep coming in your life. It's almost impossible to not have any negative people, right?
Right.
Even in your life, maybe there might have been people that might have not been
Absolutely.
good. But do you think that when energies don't match for some reason, they automatically leave your life?
Yes, they automatically leave, but sometimes they don't leave so easy also because see, we are product of conditioning. So people are also attached to people around them,
Mm.
clingy,
Mm.
we say. So some people will cling on because they are, it's not that they also realize that something has changed in the energy.
Yeah.
I am not getting the same vibe from this person that I used to love earlier, right? Or respect earlier, but they still cling on because of the habit, the conditioning, right? You have to break out of that. If you break out, the faster you break out, uh, the lesser the time is for the reset, to start all over again. So I would say that, one is automatically there will be some form of, balancing that will happen where negative people will stop. If you're more positive, negative people will start getting weeded out. But if they don't, then you will have to make an effort, because they are probably clingy then.
Correct.
You need to break out of that relationship.
Right. So, since you said that, when you're positive, you attract positivity. If you're negative, you attract negativity. That is also a lot about what the law of attraction talks about, manifestation. All of these topics are again greatly spoken about, in today's time. There are a lot of, I've seen a podcast talk about it. But I had a small question from you. Is that we manifest the good, right? But then we can also manifest the bad. But do you think that we can possibly also manifest the worst for ourselves without knowing or understanding it?
Yes.
But then, it's like you got cancer, right? Now, it's impossible for you to manifest that. How? That's almost impossible for me to understand. How is that possible that you can manifest the worst for yourself? How?
See, this happens inadvertently. Like, and very good question again, because what happened is in my case, when I was a youngster, a teenager, I used to always have this feeling that I don't have strong lungs.
Oh.
So now think about this. I'm thinking about this all the time. Every time I'm doing a physical activity, I feel inferior to everybody else, thinking I don't have strong lungs, let's say. So, what am I really saying to the intelligence around me? I'm manifesting negative things without me knowing what I'm doing. So, this negative self talk is actually wrong. This is what attract. Now, I think in hindsight, that's why it spread to the lungs. That's where the major impact was, right? So, had I not been thinking that way, so now what can I do to unmanifest it is by changing the conditionings, changing my beliefs. Now I'm running 8 kilometers a day. So if you ask me how good are my lungs, oh, they are on the top of the world, right? So I think sometimes we have negative talk within us without realizing the repercussion. Uh, my wife, she believes in a lot of rituals, and she keeps telling me that the super consciousness always grants you what you want. It's only there to grant you. Tathastu. Amen. That's all it's going to do. It's what you are asking. If inadvertently you are asking the wrong thing without realizing it, then you will attract it. And when you're hit with it, then you will possibly correct it if you have the chance. If not, it may be fatal. But whatever it may be, it's something that you attracted without your own knowledge. So, my 2 cents to everyone is that be careful with what you think. Now, how can you be so alert? That's where alertness means aware. Awareness means, you know, to have a distance between your thoughts and your attention. That is awareness. I may think, see, my heart beats. Do I have control over my heartbeat? No. It can, based on my physical, if I'm running, my rate will increase. If I'm rested, it will be at resting heart rate. Do I control how much bile my liver has to secrete? Oh, I have eaten this, so now 25 ml bile has to be secreted. Oh, it is automatic. If that is the case, why are we so much hung up on my mind and its thoughts? That is also automatic. So, if mind is also working automatically, it's cognizing thoughts, creating thoughts, and we know that it will create thoughts. That's its job. Just like my heart is beats, my liver secretes by, my mind generates thoughts. How much attached I have to be to each thought is really at my discretion.
Correct.
If I pay too much focal attention on each thought and take it to be true, then it will hurt me. I'm spending too much mental energies. So I decide I'm not going to put too much energies onto that thought. I'm going to let it go. This is exactly what is meditation. This act of letting thoughts come and go without you getting attached to them is the act of meditation. Only thing is you're anchoring your attention on your breath or on a guided voiceover that you're hearing. That's where your attention is focused. You're not focusing it on all the thoughts that are getting generated. That is, if that is meditation, then try to be in that meditative state by not clinging on to every thought and taking every thought to be true. Like I mentioned, 200,000 thoughts every day. 99% are useless thoughts because they are just getting cognized. And we start ignoring those, the ones that don't need to be taken seriously. You'll suddenly see a sudden release of energy.
So, again, coming back to your journey of overcoming your health issue, did you not take any medication? Was it completely natural, or were there certain medication or practices that the doctor told you that you were also following?
I am taking medication also, but I have to tell you this thing. What really convinced me was when I changed my doctor. My doctor said we'll have to, we should try looking at putting you on to a clinical trial. So obviously, to get qualified to be part of the clinical trial, there has to be an period of time when I'm not exposed to any medication.
Okay.
So they asked me to go on a 5 week period, which is called a baselining period, to ensure that I'm not taking any medicines. So they do a PET scan before and they do a PET scan after. And based on to find out the natural rate of progression of the disease. If the disease is progressing at an alarming rate, which in my case was happening, in that case, then I would be a bad statistic to the company which is sponsoring the clinical trial, right? So they wouldn't enroll me. So their idea is to enroll people who are not going to be turn out to be bad statistics, but has enough longevity for them to realize what the drug that they have built, what effect it has on the disease, right? So to ascertain that, they put me on this clinical trial baselining period of 5 weeks. They did a PET scan, pre and then the post. Obviously, I'm not supposed to have any treatment, any medication. And the only thing I was doing during that time was the lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
And after 5 weeks, I got this sudden 25 missed calls from my hospital and the doctor. So I pick up and in those days, obviously, because, I wasn't interested in talking to so many people because they were asking me the same things, guess, how did this happen? You don't want to be too talkative about those things. So really not in the mood. So I was not paying attention to my phone. It was just lying around. I see it and I see 25 missed calls. So I call the doctor back and sorry, the doctor called me at the same time when I was looking at the phone and she's saying, Mr. Khatal, what are you doing? I got scared because I used to getting bad news in those days. So I said, no, what do you mean? So she says, your cancer markers have halved and 75% of the tumor sizes have reduced. So reduction of 75% in the tumors. And I'm doing nothing. I'm not supposed to have any treatment, not supposed to have any medication in those 5 weeks. Only thing I'm doing is my diet and my pranayams. That gave me that confidence that what I'm doing is really working. So then, obviously, because my 75% of my tumors had reduced, so obviously I got enrolled for the trial and then I started taking the trial medications also. But my conviction that it was working was already set. So I was very diligent with this new lifestyle that I had got,
Yeah.
and I was also doing the clinical trial. Now, somebody may argue, that, it's the drugs that have worked, or that is for the debaters to really figure out. As far as I am concerned, I was very clear. 5 weeks, nothing, no medication. It works. Detox. Detox works, you know. And how do you detox? Go back to the five elemental inputs. Start conserving energy on your digestive and mental, emotional aspects and see wonders happening.
Hmm. So now, through this entire journey, this process of healing, changing your lifestyle, must have changed your personality also a lot, right?
Yeah.
How was your personality really like pre-cancer and then afterwards?
My pre-cancer personality was a very selfish personality who was always worried about seeking materialistic outcomes, be it money, be it growth and work, be it physical uh, beauty or kind of looking good and all those. So I was focused only on that. Now I'm more focused on the fact that how aware am I about things, How much am I really, all this information which I chanced upon, how much am I really sharing it? How effectively am I sharing it? You know, you'll get a lot of this information on Instagram, but I lived this thing. So a lot of people do reach out to me even now. They've seen my videos, they've seen some of my uh, podcasts, and they want to really, find out, saying that, hey, if you did it, can you share? Now, I want to do my best to be able to communicate this same experience
with them.
and imbibe or, create that impression strong enough for them to make a change in their own lives, so that if they are facing any chronic illnesses, either physical or emotional in nature, mental emotional in nature, may they start making they are kind of, you know motivated enough, inspired enough to take that action and then stick to it. So making myself available to them is really the goal now. So that is the change, the pre and the post.
Yeah. And eventually, of course, by your own practices, when you finally got the news that you were free from cancer, how was that feeling like? Where were you? What did you feel in that moment?
I remember it was the 5th of February 2022,
Okay.
and I was in a train, right, coming back from the hospital, going back to my home. And there was a elderly gentleman who I had given my seat to. And there was this call which came from the hospital, and they said, Mr. Khatal, your latest CT scan shows no, elements of cancer. And my markers, tumor markers, were already even much before had become normalized. So when they said that, I started crying because it was tears of joy. And 5th February is actually World Cancer Day. I didn't know that. I came to know later on, and I started crying. And the moment I started crying, this old gentleman, he suddenly became very aware, and did realize, he was trying to figure out why I was like crying. He said, "Sir, why don't you take your seat back and sit here?" He thought I was crying because I was standing and I had given him his. And then I started laughing, cry, all at the same time, saying, no, 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 it's not that. I told him what happened, what transpired. I got this good news. He hugged me, and it felt so surreal, very dramatic at that moment, very filmy, so to say. But here was a complete stranger who also celebrated that moment.
So, since you shared this, and through the podcast, I've realized that self belief, having belief in oneself, not giving up, still trying your best no matter what is very important.
Yes.
So, how did self belief and believing that there is something good coming, not giving up, been very important for you in this journey of fighting cancer? And then obviously, it must have changed you beyond that as well.
One of the reasons that self belief was lacking, and it happens with all of us in some way, shape, or form. I have seen cases where I'm talking to some people and they say that I am a perfectionist. And got me thinking, saying that why would a person say he's a perfectionist? Even I used to believe that at one point out, but I realized that a perfectionist is a person who calls himself a perfectionist out of pride, but at the very core, the reason why he's saying this is it's self-talk. He's trying to say that to himself that you cannot afford to make mistakes. So under the garb of perfection lies a fear of failure. Now, this fear of failure has been developed over a multitude of years. It could be strict parents saying that you cannot fail, you cannot make a mistake. How can you make a mistake like this? So, the fear of getting scolded by parents could have created that fear of failure. So, we develop these fears, of various kinds. They could be guilt, they could be unworthiness, they could be, I'm not good enough, those kind of feelings. Very honestly, all these are just make believe beliefs, in our head. We are all worthy. There is nothing short for any one of us. But that acceptance that I am enough is so important, is so important. And I realized in this entire journey that I was always enough. It was me who had conditioned my own self to believe I was not enough, which created all the problem. And when you realize this and say, no, I am enough, I don't need anything else, I am good as I am, I have to just accept myself. That is where the first step to healing happens,
Correct.
right? And of late, when I'm talking to so many other patients who are going through cancer, they reach out to me because they've seen, some content, and I tell them the same thing, that you are enough, you are amazing, believe in that. And I've seen that a lot of them, and especially when you are going through such a thing, when somebody, I've seen some of them break down because they were waiting to hear this, waiting to hear this. It's just that somebody had to tell them. The people around them probably didn't know that this is what they need to hear.
Mm. Yeah.
Eh,
So, just like this, since you were able to beat cancer and come out of this victorious, there are so many people that might be going through this tough moment today as well. What is one advice that you would like to give to them?
First of all, we as human beings have to know that we are enough. Okay. That is the first biggest advice. And second thing, stop trying to control everything around you. Trust me, you don't control anything. You believe, you may think you are controlling stuff, but there are too many factors and variables. Even one small thing goes against your plans, it can disrupt everything. So accept the fact that you know you are not doing everything, that you itself is illusionary. Identify who the real you is. you know don't believe in those roles that you're playing. Those are just roles. It's like an actor plays a role, and after the role is over, he moves to the next role. So you're playing these roles. You'll have to play this as long as you're alive, but don't get attached to these roles. And don't, during those, while playing each of those roles, we start creating this baggage about being not being enough. So snap out of it and say you are enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is one advice I would give people, so that they are themselves and they are living to the fullest potential, physically, mentally.
Yeah. And do you think just the way that you were able to completely shift your way of living, diet, when it comes to your exercise, and that helped you overcoming such a difficult time period, which was cancer? Can these other people going through the same also adapt to this, and can they also help overcome that via complete change of lifestyle?
Absolutely. They can, a lot of them can benefit from this change in lifestyle. Some of them may even be able to completely come out of their, situations, physical ailments. Some of them may be able to avert, such kind of ailments if they are at the cusp of it, prevent, completely. So definitely, and this, it is very essential they do. Having said that, I'm not saying that they should not seek medical advice. They should seek medical advice as and when required. But they have to also keep in mind that modern medicine is amazing at urgent care. It is amazing at diagnostics, but for chronic diseases, you cannot just rely on modern medicine. It is lifestyle related,
Okay.
and you have to change it with modern medicine and lifestyle
Mm.
changes.
Yeah, right. So now, as we're nearing the end of this podcast, we had such a beautiful conversation about, of a change of lifestyle, mindset, so many other things. But if there is one advice or one lesson someone told you, or you naturally learned through this journey of when you were diagnosed with cancer to then eventually being cancer free? What was that?
One lesson that I learned.
Yeah.
One lesson that I learned was to not to take my own self too seriously,
Mm.
to take my thoughts too seriously, you know. That is one advice that, one learning rather, I would have taken. I earlier used to be very consumed by my thoughts, thinking every thought is true. Now, not anymore. Of course, I do get consumed from time to time, but I snap out of it faster than earlier. So one lesson is not to cling on to every thought that was generated in the mind. And that has been my lesson. And I would strongly advise people not to take yourself too seriously. Have fun,
Yeah.
you know.
And is that a message you would like to give to today's youth as well? Because we are so caught up in all of these things, the competition, trying to do so much, being our best at everything. We feel inferior because somebody else is doing better than us. Is that something you would like to tell today's youth as well?
Absolutely. You are the best any which ways. Nobody has to give you any sort of validation. Yes, you will seek validation, but you don't have to rely completely on it. You know for yourself that you are the best, and you try to get that best version of yourself to whatever you do in life, in your profession, in your family situations, in your relationships, in your experiences. Get the best, give the best, you know. That I wish them all the best. I wish you the best.
Yeah. Thank you so, so, so much for coming on the podcast with this beautiful advice. We're ending this podcast, the conversation that we've had, over the last 2 hours. I have learned so much and I've been so inspired by your journey. And I know that the audience watching will probably be able to, adapt a lot of lifestyle changes also and realize that nothing is the end of it, to never give up and always keep going.
Absolutely. Keep going.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Rashi, for having me on Brew and Banter.